Hey everybody, welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. We have Julie Roginsky back with us. We'll chat with her in just a second, but first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So Julie Roginsky is the co-founder of the Mayday Media Network on YouTube and the author of the Salty Politics newsletter on Substack. She has nearly 3 decades of public and private sector experience as an advisor on strategic communications, political strategy, and public relations, working on behalf of corporate and political clients, which include Fortune 500 companies, startups, nonprofits, and dozens of politicians. She is also the co-founder of Lift Our Voices, a national nonprofit organization dedicated to transforming the American workplace by banning forced arbitration clauses and non-disclosure agreements for toxic workplace issues. And she is a former contributor at Fox News Channel, where she was a frequent co-host of Outnumbered and The Five. Prior to that, she was a contributor at CNBC, the financial news network. Julie, welcome back to the back room.
I am so happy to be with you, Andy. How are you?
I'm good, but I'm stressed. And I'm going to get into your latest, one of your pieces that you wrote in Substack in a second. But you have some exciting news. Tell me about Mayday Media Network.
Cool. I was like, wow, okay. So we're about to launch it, but we launched it several months ago. Michelle Kinney, I don't know if you know. Do you know Michelle Kinney?
Of course.
Yeah, Michelle Kinney. Michelle Kinney and I are launching the Mayday Media Network, and we decided that there are not enough progressive voices out there on social media. The Republicans, frankly, are kicking our ass when it comes to that kind of stuff. And what we're doing is we're melding politics and culture, because that's the way to reach people. Otherwise, you're just talking to the choir, right? Preaching to the choir. So we have a Mayday morning show that we do every morning from 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern that people can watch on Mayday on YouTube. If they don't catch it live, they could watch it on repeat on YouTube. We have Pax Americana with Olga Lautman, which is a foreign policy show on Thursdays at 11. We have Jeff Jarvis. And do you know Jeff? You know Jeff, right?
No,
He's
sure.
Media critic. We do a show with him every Friday, also at 11. So, and then we have our Saturday morning show that we've had for a very, very long time at 10 a.m. Eastern, where we just catch up with folks online and talk to them. And so we would love to have you on, but also we'd love to have people come watch. And we're about to do an official launch. We're also, for people who are into the Americans, doing an Americans rewatch. Because did you ever watch The Americans, Andy? Did you ever watch that show?
Yes, I'm in the middle of it, or towards the end of it. Yeah. So
watch it.
No spoilers.
No spoilers, but we're doing, I actually never saw the last season. We're doing an Americans rewatch from scratch. And the reason we're doing that is because it's kind of relevant to what's happening now. But also, I don't know if you know this, I actually came here as a Soviet refugee
I know that.
In 1980, right at the same time that show began. And so I have a lot of insight as to what it was really like being Russian and trying to become Americanized back then. And so we're going to have some former counterintelligence people on to talk about the hunt for Russian spies. As we watch the show, we're going to hopefully try to get a couple of former Russian spies to come on, because I think they have a beat into those. So it's going to be pretty awesome. And we're going to watch it and then talk about it in the larger context of what's going on right now also.
Wow. So before we get into what's going on right now and the stress of it all, let's stick with this fun subject and talk about culture for a second. So you have to answer the burning question in America right now, which is, why is heated rivalry so popular?
I have not seen it. And the reason I haven't seen it is I was about to start watching it, but I have a 13-year-old. Every time I watch something, he comes into the room all the time. And I was like, I just thought it was a hockey movie. I didn't realize a hockey show. I didn't realize it was a little more than that. And literally, I was about to press play. And then Michelle Kinney, of all people, goes, "You're not watching that with Zach, are you?" And I said, "Yeah, he's really into hockey." She's like, "No. We cannot stop him." So I haven't seen it yet. I understand that there are reasons why 13-year-olds should not be watching it. So I don't know.
That's a good call, I think.
Have you watched it?
No. You know, I was out with my daughters for dinner the other night, and they love it. I mean, obsessed. My youngest is already like watching it for the second time.
Yeah.
And I said, is this something I should watch? And they're like, no. No, Dad, not for you.
Well, I think
And I was like, I like hockey, and they're like, not for you.
I think it's all very. My understanding is it's about gay hockey players, and I think there's
It's
a lot of
two gay hockey players, young. They're rookies apparently, and
okay.
it's a love story, and it's one I think we need right now, which is to counter, like Donald Trump exhausts the hell out of us nonstop with all of his crazy autocratic bullshit. And it's easy to get caught up in that. But like the reality is a movie about two gay hockey players is the hottest thing in America right now. So what does that say about America, right? And what does it say about how Americans feel about masculinity? So I'm happy that a movie about two gay young hockey players is so damn popular, especially apparently on the hockey podcast. It's apparently something they can't stop talking about. So this is a good thing for America, in my opinion.
We're better than this. And I think that's the whole message here, right? Like what's being done in our name is not who we are. We are better than this.
I do believe that 100%.
I know it. I mean, I know it because I don't care who you talk to right now, unless you're full on red-pilled MAGA nuts, right? Which most people are not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking about a third of the Republican Party, and that's a small percentage of the population. Most people are just over all this shit. I don't know how else to say it. They're stressed, they're afraid, they're angry, they're concerned, pick an adjective, but they are also just not this.
Yeah.
And nobody is. I mean, I have Republican friends, as we all do, and I don't know that I am friends with anybody who voted for Donald Trump the second time because that's a bridge too far.
Right.
But I do know people who are lifelong Republicans, small C conservatives, and they're over this. Like nobody's enjoying what's happening right now unless you are a crazy, embittered MAGA partisan, in which case I guess I haven't come across you because I don't hang out with people like that. But that's not the vast majority of this country.
No, I say this all the time. I believe that my fellow Americans, the overwhelming majority of them are good, decent people who fundamentally share a lot of my same values, regardless of what party they belong to. So let's talk about a piece you wrote on Substack this week. It's called, I love the title, How Much Longer Are We Supposed to Live with This Stress? And you write, quote, I am long past the point of expecting the government to help me. At this stage, I would settle for something far more modest. I want it to leave me alone. I wanted to stop stressing me out. I wanted to stop making me fear for my family's safety every single day because a bunch of unstable men with guns now get to wear badges and threaten the rest of us at taxpayer expense. I mean, that's it, as Austin Powers said, in a nutshell. And when does it stop? It's like I was just saying to my co-producer, Jen, here before, that it's like you wake up every day and it's like, what did this maniac post in the middle of the night? What's the new headline? Who's he attacking? Blah, blah, blah. It's like it doesn't fucking stop. And it's exhausting.
No, I had to drive to scenic Trenton, New Jersey yesterday, which is far from New York City.
Lucky you.
Yeah, lucky me. Almost a 2-hour drive. Because one of my good friends was being sworn into the General Assembly, and she means a lot to me, so I wanted to go see her get sworn in. And so, I was on the road most of the day, and I was busy with other stuff, in between, and I got home, and I was, basically had missed a day of working and other stuff, so I had to spend all afternoon and evening catching up on it, and then so on and so forth. I woke up this morning, and we do the morning show. Michelle said, did you, see what happened yesterday here and here and here and here? And there were probably 5 things, all of which in a normal news cycle would be their own news cycle for 5 days, if not longer. And I was like, no, I was on the road for a few hours yesterday and I missed it. And the thing is, I'm exhausted. I am exhausted. I want to take a day off. I want to take a week off. I'm not having to think about this guy, but it's basically what I said. I don't know if it was in that Substack. I think it was about him. He's like the fucking Kardashians. You can't avoid him even if you want to. Like, I've never seen an episode of The Kardashian Show. Ever, ever, ever. I hate reality TV. I don't begrudge people who love it. It's just not my cup of tea. Don't care.
Agreed.
And yet somehow, for the past decade, I know the names of all of their baby daddies. I know the names of all their children. I know the names of all of their plastic surgeons. I know everything about them, despite the fact that I have assiduously gone out of my way not to watch that show.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they're unavoidable. They're just imposed on you, whether you like it or not. Trump is the same way, except that the Kardashians are not sitting there threatening me and my safety and my mental health, because every single day you're wondering how much more we're slipping into autocracy. And I think that's the difference. Like, remember the days of having presidents you just didn't think about for a little while?
Yes.
They have this malignant narcissist.
Politics was boring, except for the political junkies.
You know, I used to, and I loved it that way. I am a political junkie, so it was never boring for me, but it certainly was boring for a lot of people and friends I have who now are watching this and are like they just woke up. They're like, what just happened to the country? And did you ever see Fatal Attraction?
Sure.
Remember that scene where Glenn Close is sitting there and she's flipping the light on and off because Michael Douglas, you know, after having had that weekend with her, just decided to go back to his family and ignores her. And she's like sitting there getting more and more psychotic, flipping the lamp on and off. And then she starts leaving him answering machine messages. She goes, "I won't be ignored, Dan." Mm-hmm. Remember that line? "I won't be ignored, Dan." That's Trump.
Yeah.
That's
no,
Trump.
look, I haven't seen that movie in many years, so I don't remember it exactly. But my favorite scene in that movie, I think she ends up in his house when he comes home.
Yeah.
And he's like, "It's over." Yeah. And she goes, "It's not." And I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah. That whole where she calls him and she just leaves an answering machine message for the reason that you just said, right? Because he's basically said, "Look, we had that weekend of having great sex, and now I'm going to go back to my wife and kid, and like you were just a fling." And she was like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
And she literally starts, you know, she goes crazy, obviously, and then she's like, "I won't be ignored, Dan." And that's him with all of us. Like, I won't be ignored.
You know what it is? That's him. When she says it's not over, that's him going Trump 28. It's the same fucking thing.
And like, that's the thing. Like, I don't want to think about this guy. And it's not even about policy anymore. Like, you think about like the good old days where you used to worry about marginal tax rates. He used to debate about marginal tax rates. He used to debate about the size of the military. He used to debate about, you know, Medicare for all or
regulation.
Like, the boring stuff, right? That really impacts people on a daily basis. So it's not boring to people's lives,
right.
But the debates were kind of boring, right? And now we're sitting there, we're not even debating anymore. We're sitting there wondering, oh my God, if I turn down the wrong street, am I going to be pulled out of my car and beaten and arrested? For what?
Well, you know what's really fascinating? I forget who we attribute this quote to. It's the famous quote of first they came for the, then they came for the, then they came for...
It was Reinhold Niebuhr. That's who.
Okay,
was, yeah.
Well, let's apply it to the United States in the last year. First they came for the scary brown refugees, and then they shot a white 37-year-old wife and mother on an American street. And that speaks to what you just said, is that I think a lot of people who were already pissed off about this isn't the worst of the worst. This is good people. You're rounding up my landscaper, the person in a hotel, the nanny of my next door neighbor's kid. And then it was like there are U.S. citizens that are getting roughed up and detained. And now a woman is murdered. She's murdered in cold blood at point blank range. And I think a lot of people are like, whoa. And they're living that quote. They're seeing it play out right before their eyes. First they came for the refugees. Now they're coming for Renee Good, and people like Renee Good and me.
I was on CNN the other day, and I was debating Noah Rothman from National Review, and I said, and this kind of went a little bit viral, and of course you can imagine my Twitter feed with all the crazy MAGA people, where I said this could happen to any one of us. And he goes, "No, it can't happen to any one of us. You know, you would never be in that situation because you never put yourself in that situation, because you never be protesting, you never be, provoking these ice ages." I said, "Excuse me, I have a First Amendment right to protest whoever the hell I want.
Right.
And why wouldn't I be in that situation?"
Right.
"Well, no, you have to tell me, like, if you just obey instructions." I'm like, okay. And then, of course, I said, okay, so in the 1930s, that would have worked out really well, right? Just obey instructions, obey orders. The orders are to round up all the Jews. Everybody else, take a step back. Don't protest it. And then, of course, you say that, oh, you're comparing us to Nazis. Yeah, right now I am comparing you to Nazis.
Absolutely.
I am comparing you to Nazis. When ICE uses, and by the way, and I wrote another Substack about this, when ICE uses neo-Nazi memes that are not even dog whistles, but explicit appeals to recruit the worst of the worst, they're not using memes to appeal to recruiting me or you. They're using memes to appeal to recruit people who, I mean, for example, they have this recruitment thing up, which says, "Which way, American man?" Mm-hmm. Well, that is a takeoff of Which Way, Western Man, which is a really popular book in neo-Nazi circles. You and I wouldn't know what they were talking about, but neo-Nazis do. And they're like, oh, this is an organization that actually values my values. So I'm going to go join it. And that's just one out of about 5 examples that I came up with, that I found. I mean, consistently, if you look at the Department of Labor, strangely, and then you look at ICE, not so strangely, ICE uses recruitment memos and Department of Labor uses memes that are straight.
And music, apparently, too.
And music, right. So they had something, that basically, Ein Reich, ein Volk, ein Führer, which was the Nazi slogan, one country, one people, one leader. Now ICE puts something out that says something like one country, one people, one heritage. I mean, are we supposed to pretend that we don't understand what this is all about? And that's who they're recruiting.
Well, but you see, you understand history. That's an important element of a conversation like this, is that you have to understand history. And if you understand history, you understand that the concentration camps were, mid-40s. The war ended in 1945. Hitler rose to power in the late 20s, early 30s. And if you look at how he rose to power, he had a bunch of goons, his little stormtroopers, and they beat the shit out of anyone who didn't want him to take over the party and who didn't want him to become chancellor. And he literally beat the shit out of people to get where he was, to be in a position to cause the kind of horror that he did ultimately. And that was a span of, 15 years. And why is that not comparable to what we're seeing now? I mean, I wrote a piece in 2015, and I was on Huffington Post when Huffington Post was like the thing. I was on their homepage every freaking day. Literally, I would be like, Obama, Alec Baldwin, Andy Ostroy, holy shit. And then I wrote a piece called Trump and Hitler, and they didn't post it. And I said, why? And they were like, too controversial. But it's like, who didn't see this shit coming?
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, let me ask you this, though. We know how it ended with Nazi Germany. A lot of people died. So I don't think we want to go in that direction. How does this end? Because it's got to end eventually, right? How does this end?
Sure, it does end. But what we saw last week with Renee Good and what we're seeing all over the country, like before it ends, how much worse is it going to get? And 100%. I fear that when you have someone like Trump and Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem and Bondi and Patel, whatever, and they look and go, all right, we just killed someone. And we could say there's nothing to investigate, okay? Done, over, concluded. He's good, she's bad. And we're going to investigate her, and we're going to investigate Becca Good, her wife, but we're not going to investigate the actual agent who shot her and killed her. We could probably do this again and again and again. If we don't nip this shit in the bud right now, if congressional Republicans don't look at what happened in Minneapolis and go, whoa, we got to stop. If they're not looking at what's taking place since in Minneapolis, I mean, now there's 1,000 more ICE agents, Border Patrol agents on the way to Minneapolis. Pete Hegseth is deploying 25 JAGs. The hell is that all about? How much worse is this going to get?
Okay, but your question kind of is the same as mine, which is congressional Republicans are not going to do jack. You know that. The congressional Republicans are motivated by fear of Trump, motivated by fear of the base, and the base is being fed bullshit by influencers on the right and by Trump. So, we can forget about congressional Republicans. So in the absence of congressional Republicans defunding ICE, which we know is never going to happen, or at least putting some serious constraints on funding for ICE, how does this end? I mean, that's the thing. Like, what are we supposed to do right now? All
right. So there's a bill that's going to be put before the Senate in a couple of weeks, a funding bill for ICE. What is Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries say, we will not support this unless agents are forced to wear masks and they have to have warrants. And I'm reading this and I'm like, are you out of your fucking minds? How about defund ICE? How about shut that shit down?
But
masks?
Okay. Listen, it doesn't matter because Democrats don't have, yes, I mean, we have pathetic leaders and they are so afraid of being seen as open border people that they're going to keep funding ICE. It's absurd and stupid. Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith, who are the senators from Minnesota, I would hope to God that they say we're not putting a cent into ICE until they get the hell out of our state. Ever. We're not funding ICE. And I hope they mobilize their congressional colleagues to do the same. Because one day it's Minnesota, the next day it's, New Jersey, and the next day it's, pick another Georgia, pick another.
First they came for Minnesota, then they came for, it's the same shit.
So the question here is, we can't count on them because they're pathetic. They just are. Our leaders are living in a completely different world where they just don't understand how we all feel about this. Like that, it is what it is. And you can call your congressman, you can call your senator, and I urge you to. You can certainly express your dissatisfaction with them, and I strongly urge you to do that too. But assuming that they're not going to change their pattern of behavior, what are we regular people supposed to do? When the other day I read that my hometown mall in central New Jersey had an ICE raid on it. ICE agents showed up with guns at this Princeton, outskirts of Princeton, New Jersey mall where I used to hang out as a kid, and just started intimidating people. And, I think about this and I think, okay, if this were 13-year-old Julie and she asked her parents for a ride to the mall today, my parents would say, no, sorry, you got to stay home.
Right.
Of course. And, that's what we're doing to our kids now. I don't know what's happening in Minneapolis, but I'm pretty sure that parents are not telling their children to go hang out right now. I mean, this is not just impacting people.
They're not even going to school. They had to shut the schools.
Yeah, all of this is impacting people who have nothing to do with immigration in a really, really tangible way.
Yeah.
And so I say,
it's hurting the economy.
Right. So I say, what do we as Americans do to stop this? I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, we could take to the streets.
Which we are.
Right, which we are.
Well,
but that's not
I
enough.
will say that under normal times, taking to the streets, a resistance movement could be very effective. And I think it is effective to a degree. My fear is that that's exactly what Trump wants. He wants people in the streets. He wants it to get ugly. He's waiting for it to get ugly.
I agree.
And then
I agree.
And then he invokes martial law.
Look,
I don't know how any of that works through the court system, because thankfully, we've seen that there's what Trump wants to do, what Trump tries to do, and what he ends up not being allowed to do. And that third thing is happening a lot more than not.
Okay, it's happening in the lower courts, and then it gets to the Supreme Court, and he's allowed to do it. So it's just a delay. We can't count. Here's the problem. We can't count on our Democratic leaders. We certainly can't count on our Republicans because they're bought and sold. We cannot count on the Supreme Court. The lower courts and the appellate division, for the most part, are all doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. So Trump takes a pause, and then he, emergencies it up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, without listening to arguments or anything else, put something out on the shadow docket saying, go ahead, Donald Trump, do whatever you want, for the most part. And so I ask again, if we are a nation, and this is, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I actually have a piece coming out on this soon. But if we are a nation where if the government treats us like the enemy, what exactly are we supposed to be loyal to? Right? You're in an abusive marriage here where you're being treated like the abused spouse, and yet you're having the shit kicked out of you every day. You are told that you're worthless and awful, mm-hmm. and yet you're supposed to be loyal to your husband and to the marriage.
Well,
isn't that what we are?
It's a great analogy, and I will expand on it because I used to watch the show Cops when it first came out. It's actually the original reality show. And they would go to a home where there was a domestic disturbance, and they'd find a woman literally with her eyes punched out and bleeding, whatever. And then they say to her, do you want to press charges? And she'd say no. And they go, why? And she'd be like, because I love him. It's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. People are watching what's going on, and then they find their way to say, but I love him.
Yep. That's them. But us, like, what are we, like, are we supposed to just unconditionally love our country no matter what, even when our country's treating us like?
No. And I don't know how you feel, but I defended, as a Jew, I've defended Israel for so long. And then I got to a point where I was like, I can't defend certain things anymore. I love Israel. I love Zionists. I love Jews. I love it all. I love it all. I hate Netanyahu, and I hate what he and his administration are doing to that country and its people. And it's the same thing here. I love America. I'm an American. I'm a patriot. But I don't like Trump. I don't like the administration. I don't like what America has become under Donald Trump. And so it is this push-pull, like, how do you be a patriotic American who loves your country, but is okay saying, I hate my country right now because of what it's doing to refugees and its own people? And then what do you do? Where do you go from there?
We go from there is the question. And I think that's what I'm grappling. Where do you go from there? Because the old tricks of the trade were you vote the bums out. I don't know that we're going to have free and fair elections in 26. I don't know. I mean, wouldn't be surprised if he invoked the Insurrection Act. I wouldn't be surprised if he waited till 28 to invoke the Insurrection Act so he could stay in power. But I wouldn't be surprised if he invoked it now and kept it going through 28. We can't count on that. We can't count on our institutions to hold. We can't count on the courts because the Supreme Court has been hijacked. This has been a decades-long project for these people to get to the point where this is all falling into place for them, where every branch of government is falling into place for authoritarianism, including the courts. And I'm not talking about
I may be very naive, and my nickname around here is Optimistic Andy, so I put that out there in advance. But I still believe the Supreme Court will do the right thing.
But they haven't.
Well, they have on a few instances. Recently, the National Guard deployment went against Trump. My theory of the Supreme Court is that they see things through two different lenses. One lens is, let's shut him up and expand his power and let him feel important in certain areas. And then there's another lens, which is his desire to completely burn democracy to the ground, which doesn't benefit them at all. These people with nice, cushy lifetime appointments and a lot of power. And so I still hold out that where the moment of handing him the keys to the democracy, that's not what they're going to do. They'll give him a lot of other stuff, which they have. But I have to have that hope, because if I don't, then I'm going up to the roof.
Well, I know.
And I'm making like Superman, except I'm not Superman.
But I don't think it's going up to the roof. I think it's thinking, what can we do as individuals now that our institutions have all failed us? And I'm grappling with that because it used to be that listen, I have a house out in eastern Pennsylvania. And so there are a lot of very Trumpy people around me. And all of them have, Trump MAGA flags. And they have the, blue line, protect the police flags, whatever they're called. And then they also have the don't tread on me flags. And I'm kind of laughing looking at this because I'm like, don't tread on me? Isn't that exactly what the government is doing right now? And I find myself becoming the don't tread on me person.
What happened to the Second Amendment? A well-armed militia against a rogue government? Like, isn't this exactly what the Second Amendment is?
Yeah, the same people who are talking about, spent my entire life talking about government overreach and government tyranny, and we have to stop government tyranny, and then don't tread on me and all this other nonsense. It's actually not nonsense in retrospect because that's exactly what's happening. But the government that is treading on me is my own. Yes. It is the United States government that is treading on me. I have a 13-year-old. I would not feel comfortable with him going to the same mall that I used to go to when I was 13 years old. Like, what are we talking about here? And I was 13 during the Reagan era. It's not like I was around during this halcyon period where
look, the biggest threat to America is the United States president. Just let that sink in for a minute when you those words leave your lips. But I think I have the answer to your question.
Okay, good.
And I'm probably going to sound like the illegitimate child of Tony Robbins and Marianne Williamson when I say this.
I can't wait to hear this. Go ahead.
We just have to have hope. We have to stay positive. We have to stay engaged. We have to resist. We have
How?
to. We just have to believe that, like the Revolution, the Civil War, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, 9/11, Watergate, blah 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 blah, Nixon. America got through it all, and eventually came back stronger and continued its progress. We have to believe that this is a blip, that he is a fucking blip, and that we collectively are so much greater, so much stronger, and so much more resilient, and so much smarter than he is. He may win certain battles, but he's not going to win the war. He may try to burn this country down, and he is trying to, and part of it is burning, but guess what? Every damn fire in this country is always put out, no matter how bad it is. Last year we saw Los Angeles burning down. Look what it destroyed. But it was eventually put out, and life goes on. People are rebuilding their homes in the Pacific Palisades. Life goes on. We have to keep telling ourselves that. Otherwise, we're all going up to the roof, right?
No.
How was that? How was that Tony Robbins
that was very,
channeling?
that was very inspirational. Thank you. That made me feel good.
Right.
But
I
don't
think
know.
it's true. It's true.
No, it's definitely true that we have always come back stronger. It is also true that I don't think we've ever had a United States president who has broken through the guardrails of every institution we had and is proactively destroying the country.
Yes, but that's all contextual. Imagine yourself living in 1970, 71, and you're watching Nixon and Haldeman and Ehrlichman and all of these guys who all ended up, except for Nixon, going to prison. I mean, think about that. I know why. I know what you're going to say.
You know why? Because a bunch of Republicans went to Nixon and said, "Mr. President, it's over." And you know what Nixon said? He didn't say, "I'm going to go out there and I'm going to destroy all of your careers. I'm going to make sure that you're going to go down if you say that." Nixon resigned.
And you know what?
This happened today.
You're going to call me crazy.
Okay.
Which you wouldn't be the first person to do that. I think this bunch of Republicans will get there. I don't know when that's going to be. But don't you think we've started to see something changing? There is resistance. Like, there is something happening. And I always liken it to like a speeding train. If you're on a speeding train and you have to stop it, you pull that cord, right? It doesn't just stop. It may go on for like 2 miles, 3 miles. It's a slow stop. And because of what you said, which is 100% right, we've never dealt with anything even remotely like this.
Yeah.
Because of that, it's going to take time to stop it. But I do feel like something's happening with the populace, something's happening with Republican Congress. The base is splintering. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Boebert, Nancy Mace. There's such public fracturing of MAGA right now. And no one can say where that's going to go. Once they start to sense that maybe he doesn't control that base the way he used to. And maybe once we get to these filing deadlines this year where congressional Republicans go, "Oh, I'm not being primaried? Okay, maybe I can grow a pair now." Like, I think something's changing. That's just me. That's my answer to your question. I have to believe in all that.
You make a very compelling point. I will say the most important primary race, and I want people to pay attention to this, and it's taking place in May, is one that we cannot vote in. Most of us in this country, irrespective of party, cannot vote in, but also most of any Democrat cannot vote in. And that is the primary in Kentucky 4 between Thomas Massie and a guy who Trump has put up to take out Thomas Massie. Now, we probably disagree with Massie on everything for the most part, right? Like, Massie is...
Except Epstein, sure.
Yeah, except, I mean, and a few other things. But Massie is not by any stretch of the imagination of bleeding heart liberal. In fact, I think he thinks Trump is too much of a bleeding heart liberal when it comes to budget issues and other things. But Massey has done something that nobody else has, which is that he has crossed Trump in a real way, continues to cross Trump in a real way. And unlike Marjorie Taylor Greene or Tom Tillis or any of these other people, he has actually decided he's going to run for office, and he is now in a primary against a guy who is a Trumper. Now, Massey actually, ideologically, I think is very much in line with where his district is. Trump wants him out. And if Massey wins, it will send a message to other Republicans that there is life after standing up for your principles. If Massey loses, I fear that what's going to happen is that they're going to say, well, if we want any kind of career, and of course they all do, we gotta kowtow to Trump, or else we're going to go the way of Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tillis and others. Going all the way back to Jeff Flake in Arizona, who temerity to stand up against Donald Trump and then just said, screw this, I'm not running for re-election because I know I'm going to lose in a primary. So the question for me is, it's not really a question. I want people to really pay attention to what's going to happen this May in Kentucky 4. It's a tiny little, all these districts are not huge, but it's just, 500,000 people. And it's hard up by the Ohio border. It's northern Kentucky, a place that most of us probably will never go or really care much about, but we should. I don't care where you live. You and I happen to be in New York, that is quite far from Kentucky, but it's important to us. It's critical to us that Tom Massey win this election.
I think that is such a really important point and race, as you pointed out. There's another great race in Kentucky for senator with Amy McGrath. We've also seen so far, every election, every special election has really gone against Trump and the Republican Party. So we have that as a foundation, the momentum of those victories. And even in cases where we've lost, we have appreciably shrunk margins to the point where it has raised alarm bells in the Republican Party. But it's just so hard to fathom, given his abysmal popularity, given how much he is underwater. CNN just came out with a new poll. They cited this morning among Gen Z, he is flipped it's like 35 points against him. He's lost independents. He's lost Hispanics. He's lost young men. He's lost a good chunk of his base. I always define his base as everyone who voted for him. And in that base, there's the hardcore MAGA crazies, and then there's independents, and then there's whoever else. People need to understand he has lost a major chunk of the base that he had just a year ago. And so it is really hard to imagine Thomas Massey losing to a candidate that's supported by someone who right now is so unpopular for so many reasons. Someone who has lied to that base about America First, about inflation in groceries, about no more wars. He has lied to them about everything. The Epstein files, which is very big to the base. It's just hard to imagine it not going the right way, but I have a little PTSD like everybody else. And what I've seen in the last 10 years has stunned me.
Yeah.
And it can happen again, But that is a bellwether. That's a real big bellwether, as you pointed out.
That's a big one. Yeah, and I think people should pay attention to that more than anything else, because Massey has done everything the base has asked of Massey. Massey has voted repeatedly to gut spending. It's not my cup of tea, but that's what the Republican base was promised. Massey was instrumental in trying to get the Epstein files released. That is what the base was promised. Massey's been instrumental in no foreign wars. That is what the base was promised. Everything that Donald Trump promised, Thomas Massey has tried to deliver. And it's because he's tried to deliver it that he is on Donald Trump's shit list. And what's going to end up happening is whether voters in Kentucky send a message to Trump that, wait a second, we actually want what you promised, or whether it's just such a cult of personality, it doesn't really matter what Trump says.
Well, I'll go back to the first thing we talked about in this conversation, which was the level of stress and exhaustion that we are experiencing right now. And just hope that the people in his district are feeling the same thing. you got to have hope. And I do believe that's the answer to your question, that Americans just have to, like a horse, put on blinders and go, Greenland, distraction, bullshit, trolling the liberals, Trump 28, just filter out all the bullshit. Because if you do that...
Is it bullshit? Because Greenland, whether we invade Greenland or not, has already damaged our NATO alliance. And most relevantly, if you want to think about how much he's doing Putin's dirty work for him.
Sure.
It has got NATO to focus on Greenland and not on helping Ukraine. Right? So nothing to see here in the East with Ukraine. Let's all focus on what's happening here in the West with Greenland. I mean, he's distracting NATO with Greenland. So regardless and irrespective of whether he decides to go into Greenland militarily, in some ways, the damage is already done. With 2028, is it a blinder? Because he's talking about, he's already put out there, oh, maybe I should cancel elections. Oh, whoops, they'll call me a dictator. He's trying to socialize all of us to this, so that when it happens, people are not going to be like, oh my God, what? Like, this is the socialization that he consistently does. That's what he did with January 6th, where he talked for months and months and months about how we shouldn't have that peaceful transfer of power, that Mike Pence should do the right thing. So that by the time January 6th happened, it was already kind of baked in. And so that's the part for me that's very hard to kind of put on a blinder and say this is a distraction, because it's not a distraction. It is him telling us the beauty of Donald Trump, and we are blessed in some ways by it if only we believe him, is that we should take him both seriously and literally, because he always tells us what he's going to do. Always.
Yes.
And we just don't believe it. We just, like idiots, we just don't believe it.
Well, there's a difference between rhetoric and intention and actual execution. So, for example, he can't just become president in 28. There's a process, right? You got to get on the ballots.
Cancel the election.
He can't. He
could just vote. Sure, he can. He can just vote. He can invoke this. Why not? He can invoke the Insurrection Act. He can put his ICE goons, which are more funded than most militaries on earth, on the street to prevent elections. I mean, I think we should expect, and I'm a little cynical because I grew up in an authoritarian country, but I think we should expect that he's looking to see what Vladimir Putin does. And I think we should expect that we are either going to have some sort of completely show type elections, or that he is just, because obviously he can't be on the ballot constitutionally, even this court will say he can't be, or he's going to just say, I'm going to invoke the Insurrection Act, which gives me permission to cancel elections. And whether the court agrees or not is the open question. And with this Supreme Court, I wouldn't be surprised if they said, well, as much as we don't like it, the Constitution is explicit. He has the right to do that. Whether it does or not is a different story, but I think they'll find a reason for it. Because they also, I think, live in a state of fear, right? They also don't want crazies showing up at their house. And, what you have here is the possibility of this happening. And Michelle Kinney, who I do this, Mayday with, has a great line. And I think it's a line we should all think about, is we all have a real failure of imagination. And as much as you got bounced from Huffington Post for saying that Trump is like Hitler, because they had a failure of imagination, I don't want us to have the same failure of imagination now about what could potentially happen. It's happened before, not in this country, but it's certainly happened around the world. I don't know why we don't expect it. I mean, look, Weimar Germany was a really good liberal place to be.
Yep. Great democracy.
And just a few years later, gone.
But we are America. I still believe in that. I still believe that we are the greatest nation in the world with the greatest people and the greatest democracy. I just do. And I think in the end, that's gonna save us. And I'll answer your question another way. 2028 is 3 years away.
Yeah.
Donald Trump he's like 80 now, right? Not a healthy man. I don't know if he's going to make it through 26, let alone make it to 28. And if he makes it to 28, I don't think that dude is going to be anywhere near the condition to be running for anything.
Well, I will tell you my theory about Donald Trump, completely based on no medical training whatsoever and having almost failed biology in the 9th grade. So I want to just put that down as a predicate for how I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But I do have a very close family member who's going through Alzheimer's. And I see what these new Alzheimer's protocols are. Mm-hmm. And you do have to get preventative, they're PET scans, but he doesn't know the difference between an MRI and a PET scan. There is something called a preventative PET scan because these new drugs scrape the plaque off your brain. And that leads to potential brain bleeds and brain tears and can lead to, obviously, death very quickly. So you have to, every so often, get preventative PET scans to make sure that you don't have any tearing in your brain. And you get the drugs administered like you do with their infusions, right? So I don't know if he's getting them infused through his hand, but they are drugs that are administered through infusion. What they do is they delay Alzheimer's by about a year and a half. If you're
Are you suggesting that the hand bruises are not from frequent handshaking?
I am suggesting that
Donald
Trump's father died of Alzheimer's. I'm suggesting, or with Alzheimer's. I'm suggesting that Donald Trump's sister died with Alzheimer's. I'm suggesting that I believe either his brother or his uncle, I forgot which one, died with Alzheimer's. It is unfortunately a sometimes genetic condition.
Look, he's been treated medically. He's been lying about it, right? He had an MRI. I don't know what it was about. Who goes for a fucking MRI and doesn't know why, right? Like, hey, can you tell me why I'm going in this thing? Like, we'll tell you later.
Why.
Like, of course he knows why. They came out last year and said he has that condition which causes the cankles and it's benign. This man is a pathological liar. Anyone around him is Baghdad Bob. So when they say something's benign, are we supposed to believe it's actually benign? No, probably means he's got 8 months to live.
Yeah, he's got a heart condition. I think he's got Alzheimer's. So again, I say that with complete lack of any kind of medical training, but having experience with somebody who's, I mean, everything adds up here. Everything adds up here. But I only say that to say that Alzheimer's doesn't kill you quickly sometimes. Alzheimer's takes a long time. But you do have more and more and more, obviously, advanced dementia. And more scarily, you start to act out in ways that are irrational and terrifying more and more. And my fear is that if I am correct, and I don't know if I am, and he does have Alzheimer's, and they're all just going along with this whole emperor has no clothes thing where everybody's afraid to say that he's out of his mind, that what's going to happen when he starts acting out and he's got access to the United States military and access to ICE and, God forbid, the nuclear. I mean, like, this is a man with immense power and somebody who is going to start having episodes, if he doesn't already, of irrational anger and paranoia and all the awful ancillary things that go into, I think, one of the worst diseases.
That's my Nixon moment. But I think we're starting to see it. Look at the War Powers Resolution. Like, they're already expressing severe concern over what he's doing in Venezuela and taking measures, trying to at least some of them, which is more than we've ever had. But this thing could pass ultimately. And that's important. I got to believe that these people, they don't want an America like this any more than you or I do. They want to be powerful. They want to have their ideology be the ideology of the country. But I don't think they want chaos and fire in the streets and murder and a complete usurpation of their power and authority constitutionally. I just think there's going to be that point. And I think you are raising maybe the reason why it'll come, perhaps sooner than later. The other thing is, I don't believe that I always know everything that politicians are doing. And I can bet there are meetings that take place with some of these guys together. We don't know what the discussions are. I mean, look at what the military did with Nixon. They had a pact that if this drunk pushes a button, it's got to go through us first. We now know from Mark Milley that the generals and the military had the same kind of pact with Trump. He did, but my point is, we didn't know it in Trump 1.0 that the military was watching it all and going, no, this maniac's not going to cause havoc. We don't know that they're not doing that now. We don't know that Republican. Lindsey Graham stands here and smiles and find someone in your life that looks at you the way Lindsey Graham looks at Donald Trump, okay? But we don't know what Lindsey Graham does behind the scenes because he's a fucking snake. He's a liar. He's an opportunist. So I'm hoping there's a lot more intelligent, connected, powerful people than me in Washington who probably see things 1,000 times clearer than I do. And they have the ability to do something about it. And they've not done something about it for a lot of reasons. But I think we're starting to see some of that change. And I think we're going to see more of that. That's my hope.
I hope you're right.
Somebody never right about anything.
Oh, it's not true. But I guess maybe I'm a little skeptical because I worked in Washington for a while, and I certainly have elected enough politicians in my life over the last 30 years to tell you I don't have the same faith in them that you do. But I will say to you that you are correct, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that this country has been through a lot, including a civil war. And we came back, and we came back stronger. It took a while, but we came back, you know, the arc to quote Martin Luther King, who did not come up with this quote, but kind of popularized it. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And I do believe that that's true. I do believe that that's true in a macro sense for sure. And so, it could happen in fits and starts, but something eventually this too shall pass.
Yeah.
Everything does. Everything does.
Julie, I say this every time you're on. I never looked at my notes once, and I could talk to you for hours. So come back again soon, and let's continue the conversation.
Anytime. Thanks so much for having me, Andy.
All righty. Take care.
Bye.
This episode was produced and edited by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-produced by Maddie Rosenberg and Jen Hammoud for Radio Free Rhinecliff, with additional editing by Maddie Rosenberg, music by Andrew Hollander, and graphic design by Cricket Langale. And with a special thanks to our sponsor, The Epicurean. Again, thanks for listening. Please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Backroom with Andy Ostroy YouTube channel, where you can watch full videos of our interviews. See you next time.